I built a marketing agency to a £24 million valuation. And in that moment that I announced that I was pregnant, absolutely everything changed. So this video is for anyone who feels like they are having to choose between having a family and having a career. So the business I ran was a marketing agency. We were very much focused on helping brands to be unbelievable when it came to influencer marketing. The first client we signed was Josh Wood. The second client we signed was Nike. The third client was Instagram. And the fourth client was a £1.7 million account. We grew pretty quickly, which was just proof of being in the business at the right time when something was starting versus it being established. And I think one of the things that I love so much about running my business, it was like a crash course in an MBA, working out what you're really good at and how to really double down and focus on your superpower. And for me, that was selling full stop, but also selling influencer. It is a space that I still massively believe in. It's something that I am really good at. And it was taking that piece of the pie in my career of I am really good at this. So how do I accelerate this and essentially make it and turn it into a business? So I ran that business for 7 years, grew to about 64 people across 3 markets, but 2 main markets, the UK and the US. All of our clients were asking us, do more, do bigger, do better. Off the PR of that, we were winning clients like Lululemon out in the US. But the biggest thing for me was around having a family and having a baby. I was in my 30s. I knew that as a woman, I had a ticking time bomb. I knew that family for me was priority number 1. It was above the business. It was above anything else. But at the same time, the business was going through this immense growth and we needed to structurally look very, very different. So we decided to go to market and look to sell the agency. I was very much brought up to believe that if you work hard, you can have it all. And I think the reality for me of trying to grow and scale a business, sell a business, but most importantly, have a family, all of those things made me realize that there is actually a glass ceiling for women. It is something that I have tried to pretend doesn't exist. I've tried to put to the back of my mind, and then I had to face it really, really head on. And that was absolutely brutal. That started with conversations early on where people were saying, well, why don't you just wait a little bit to have a child? This just doesn't seem like the right time. Or in the next meeting, make sure you don't talk about having a family. And for me, honesty, integrity was so hugely important to my personal values, but also my business values. It wasn't something that I ever wanted to hide. And I was very much an open book. I want to have a family. I'm in my 30s. I've just got married. Of course, that was what was right for me. And I was very happy and comfortable to talk about it, but people did not want to hear it. I went through the private equity process. We received a number of offers for the business. We were operating on a 2 mil EBIT. We decided to go with an offer of £24.4 million. And I found out I was pregnant and decided to tell them at 12 weeks. Again, honesty and integrity, hugely, hugely important to me. And that was when I really realized that it is almost impossible for women to have it all, and especially to have it all at the same time. I had the price chipped twice. I had retained earnings, wanted to stay in the bank. I had mental things said to me that I would never even repeat out loud. But every single day I was in a room feeling like this isn't possible just because I'm female. And actually, if I was a man, a dad going off to have a child, those conversations would never, ever have happened the way that they did for me. When I started my private equity process, every single person said the same thing to me, and they kept saying, you will drop the ball somewhere. I'm high Virgo energy. I'm immensely organized. And for me, like, dropping a ball was not an option. I very much felt like I could do it all, that I could go through a private equity deal, that I could have a UK agency, a US arm that was brand new, win work, split my time between them, be a good wife, all of the above. And I had a really harsh reality check, because I found that whole process so brutal. Being pregnant, not really sleeping because of the stress of the business, juggling my time across multiple time zones, and the general fatigue that you feel when you are pregnant. And the mental load of being a mom absolutely started for me whilst I was pregnant. And looking back, I cannot believe that I put myself through the process. But each week I just felt, well, I'm closer. It'll get done. This is about my family. This is about the future for my family. This is the big option for my family to win, for my family to do well. And actually the team would do well out of it as well. And then I got to about 2 weeks before my due date, and I was arguing a lot with my husband, and I just was like, something has to give here, and that has to be the deal. So I actually rung the company that was acquiring us directly on a Saturday about 8 a.m. in the morning, and I was like, I'm out. I cannot do this. I had a hard deadline. That baby was going to come around the 20th of September, whether we liked it or not. And my deal still hadn't been done. And I all of a sudden just had this vision of being on a labor ward, legs spread eagle, trying to sign my life away and sign in all these paperwork. But because I was in it, I couldn't stop. I couldn't take my head above water to really step back and assess, was this actually still the right thing for me, for the business, and more importantly, for my baby that I was carrying. Pulling out that deal was hands down the best thing that I ever did for the business, that I ever did for my marriage, that I ever did for my career, but also, again, most importantly, that I did for my kids. My priorities shifted and I was able to be mum first and foremost. I love having a career, I love working, and I've been able to still have a career. I did sell the business, but I didn't sell the business to a private equity. I have managed to set up other businesses, but I managed to make it work on my time. And I think taking a step back and really working through like what I had to learn the hard way, for me, the advisor that you choose is the most important thing that you can do. When you are selling a business, you are in a predominantly male environment. And a lot of that for me meant when I was around the table and I was asking people like, why are you here? What is it about this business? What interests you? A lot of it felt like tokenism. It was in the UK market, under 2% of female-led businesses take the investment. And so I was this box ticking exercise of, well, she's a female-led business, so box ticked. If we do that, we look good. And again, they weren't set up to be able to support a woman that was having a baby, despite the fact they was, doing the big jazz hands of, you will be one of our first female-led investments. That was actually a huge red flag, and a huge red flag that I chose to ignore, because in my eyes, I was helping to shift the percentages. I was helping to create more positive stories, more motivation for women that you too can build, scale, and exit an agency. And actually, again, the reality was so far removed from that. For me, if I had chosen an advisor that actually had a woman around the table, a woman who had got a family, who could sympathize, have a level of empathy, and really understand that just because I had kids, my ambition wasn't going to die in the delivery room. It wasn't that all of a sudden I was going to put my feet up. Like, that was still my business. I still cared about my business. I still cared about the clients. I still cared about the team. And I still cared about it being profitable, building and scaling on what kind of foundations we'd built. But again, the system kept saying, well, because she's pregnant, because she's going to dare to have some maternity leave, this isn't right. This is not the right business for us to invest in. And that is categorically not true. And the right advisor would have understood that and supported both the buyer and me through that process. The other big learning that I had was that we are built today to scale a personal brand. If you want to grow your business, you have to be the face of it. You have to be on LinkedIn, you have to be on YouTube. And whilst I completely agree with that, 75% of the business leads that we had with the agency I ran came through my LinkedIn, but you cannot scale a business off one person. So it's also really understanding that actually I knew I wanted to have kids. So why was I not future-proofing the business beforehand to make sure that the business operated without me? Why was I not making sure that I had an unbelievable sales director that could take some of the weight off? So when I was having those conversations with private equity houses, it was like, yes, this is what I've delivered, but also look at these other people within the business who are building and generating and growing the client list as well. And tying into that, because I didn't have kids, I could work 24/7. I gamified working. I loved it. I had a huge adrenaline rush whenever we won a new client. I'm very much a big believer that winning breeds winning. Once you've won one pitch, once you've won one new client, you've got this kind of new level of momentum to keep growing, to keep scaling, and essentially to keep winning. But when you've got a child, all of that flips, because you've got bed and bath time, because you're knackered. You don't want to do a client lunch, breakfast, dinner. You have to learn to say no to more things that you can say yes to, because you simply cannot go and be anywhere building something else 24/7 if you also want to be present as a parent. Whilst I knew I always wanted to have children, I very much just thought my kids will come, they'll slot immediately into my life, and that'll be it. I'll be Sedge with the career, and I'll be Sedge, head of entertainment, as mum. And what I really took for granted, and what I would tell anyone, whether you are a teacher, a lawyer, a doctor, someone running their own business, is that you have to plan. Kids cost a lot of money. Childcare is not set up. Businesses are not set up to support working families. And for me, a lot of the choices that I made have helped me to still now be able to have a business and to be able to be mom first and foremost. The one thing about being a parent, about being a mom, is that you're supposed to mom like you don't have a job, but work like you don't have kids. That mental load that comes into, what are my kids eating? What are they wearing? Have they got the right school shoes? Which nursery drop off? Who's doing pickup? The mother load does not stop. And for me, the thing that I could have done more was plan. I obviously could have succession planned my business, but actually taking it back even further is financially planning. How am I going to make sure that I have enough stability to be able to operate childcare wise if I want to still have a career? And that is why so many women in the UK don't go back to work. It is so expensive to either have childcare or to be able to send your child to nursery. And whilst we talk so much about this theoretical village, if it takes a village to bring up a child, not everyone has a village. Parents have passed, or you might live 3.5 hours away from your parents. And that means there isn't necessarily this kind of support system that you can always pull into to help. Essentially, having children can be a huge financial strain that you need to plan and prepare for in advance. And the same goes down to when you're planning your employer. You as a woman have to plan whether you will be in a business long enough to be able to qualify for anything outside of statutory maternity. You have to look at the places where you're applying to work out whether the maternity policy is going to cover you, whether you'll be able to take 6 months, 9 months, 12 months off. All of that comes back down into the planning. And then you've also got the plan with your partner. Who is going to do the night shifts? Who is going to be up first thing in the morning? Who is going to be the one that is there to read a story, to do bed and bath time? Like, you can't both just all of a sudden go out and live your independent lives. So if you're in a fortunate enough position to be able to co-parent with someone, that also is a lot of communication and a lot of planning to make sure that you get it right for both of you. There are so many women out there and men out there who are single parents, who are juggling and just making that work for them. And for that, I am like forever in awe of anyone who is managing to be both mom and dad. And I think my biggest humbling moment of being a parent is that things don't go to plan. Most of the time they don't go to plan. I can prep the night before what they're wearing, where we're going, what activity it is, and someone will be sick. Life will forever throw curveballs at us. As someone who has always had a plan, I've had a plan about what I'm wearing. I planned my 30th when I was 27 years of age. Planning for me is kind of how I manage to sleep at night. My plan was very much pull out the deal, focus on the baby, have my daughter and spend some time with her and just readjust to how life will be being a mom and running a business. I have my daughter. I've never felt a love like it. As cheesy as it sounds, that is absolutely true. And for me, I was like, cool, my plan doesn't work anymore. I have to rip up my own rule book. I have to start again. And I have to really map out what my family, what my parenting style, what my life looks like as someone who still wants a career, who still wants to work, who still needs to work, but someone who wants to make sure that I can be a present mom, that my daughter will remember me being around rather than me being on my phone 24/7. So even if you've got the most robust plan in the world, we all know now your plan is not going to go to plan. That is just the joy of being a parent and having things thrown at you quite literally from all angles. So in the UK, 1/3 of mothers cannot even return to work. Just the cost of childcare means that you cannot go back. And of those mums that do go back, 48% of them leave their job within 4 months because even if they have planned to have the right employer, that things feel good for them, actually so many businesses are still not set up to actually support and adapt and evolve to support more mums who are working and juggling. And that is why I fundamentally believe we are trying to succeed in a system that is just absolutely not designed and set out for us to win. And I think I wish the one thing that I was told, it wasn't about the business, it wasn't about how to do both, but it was the identity. It's the identity crisis that comes with your body changing, with your lifestyle changing. Trying to get dressed in the morning has literally never been harder, and my kids are 3 and 1. But obviously your identity for me was like so embedded in my career. I was Sedge that wanted to be around a dinner party, telling you a story about a celebrity, telling you about the clients that I'd built. And then all of a sudden my identity became being mum. My body looks different. It feels different. I also can't choose what to wear because I might have some snotty fingers rolled all over my top before I've even managed to leave the house. So that's me. In theory, on paper, I could have had the big sexy PR story, the cash in my bank of selling an agency on a £24.4 million valuation. But becoming a mom, having kids, ripped up that rule book, changed absolutely everything for me. Everything that I've done in my career, I thought was a stepping stone and a building block to get to that big title, that big salary, and obviously essentially that big exit. And that big exit not happening was absolutely where I was meant to be and what was supposed to happen. I am way happier. I've got better boundaries. I spend way more time with my kids, and that feels really good. And my job is to essentially support and help other women navigate both career and having kids and knowing how tough it is getting pregnant, going through an identity crisis, trying to work out how to juggle it all, trying to work out how to manage teams when you've had 2 hours sleep. Being a parent is the most incredible thing in the world, but it is also the hardest thing on the planet. And and just feeling like you have a support system somewhere is hugely important to managing to just get through that 6:30 p.m. bath time slot. I am here to help women have a career that they are unbelievably proud of, to navigate your career, to navigate life with a family, and to make you feel as good and as confident and as comfortable as you can with both boardrooms and babies. So if you like this video, please do me a favor and subscribe. It goes a long way into creating even more content that will hopefully help you.